Okay, and so today the title of it is all, I call it Inception Secrets. The reason why I call it Inception Secrets is because, first off, I love the movie Inception. I thought it was cool. And I love in the movie when basically when they go inside someone's dream, right, and they're going back and they're trying to place an idea inside somebody's head, because if they can place that idea inside somebody's mind in their dream, and the person thinks it's their thought and thinks it's their idea, then their determination to do whatever that thought was is 1,000 times more strong, right? And so I think about that in selling all the time. You know, when we sell stuff online, offline, wherever we're at, if we're selling, you know, there was a day and a time, I don't know when, but in the past when selling was just, that was the thing. You go out there and you sell and you close and you do this kind of stuff, and it worked, but it got less and less effective. And I think as people are maturing and as the internet and communication changes and just the way we all react, that all of us have more defense mechanisms against selling. And so I believe selling has really transformed and changed a lot over the last 5, 10 years, and especially just in the last I would say even year and a half or so, just with all the stuff that's happening. And so I strongly believe that people love to buy stuff, but they hate being sold to. And so how can we create situations and things and put systems in place where, just like Inception, we're not really selling something to anybody, but we're creating an environment and an atmosphere and a story and a thing that happens where we cause an epiphany in somebody's mind, and all of a sudden that epiphany lights them up and they think that whatever we're trying to sell them is their idea. Okay? For example, this is my failed attempt at Inception yesterday. Simon knows the story. So a lot of you guys know the MMA fights were happening next door yesterday, and one of my buddies was like the main attraction, and I've been wanting to go to it ever since I found out about it. And I wanted to go really, really bad, but I didn't want to call my wife and be like, hey, I've been gone this whole week doing events, late nights, early mornings, and having help with the kids. The one night I have a chance to come home early, I think I want to stay here and go to the fights. And so if I was told her that, she would have been angry and all these bad things would have happened, right? So I'm like, I got to figure out a way to make this her idea, and if it's her idea, then she's not going to care, right? And so I've been trying for the last week to orchestrate this thing to cause Inception in her mind so that she would have this idea to invite you, like, you should go to the fights, right? So that was my end goal. Just like your end goal should be your customer, be like, hey, I should buy your product. Like, all right, that's a great idea. So I've been trying to orchestrate Inception on my wife, and I think she's immune to my powers after over a decade of being married to me, because I was trying thing after thing after thing. Even yesterday, she came to lunch. Some of you guys had a chance to meet her. And 4 or 5 times during my conversation, I was talking about Jesse's fight tomorrow and the guy he's going to be fighting and how exciting it is for him and the fact that he's in Boise. He never fights in Boise. I kept dropping all these bombs, like just setting it up and setting it up. And she never closed the cell for me. And so last night after me and Simon were hanging out, he kept kind of prodding me like, you got to make the sale, make the sale. So I called her up and I was like, so what would it take for me to be able to stay and go to Jesse's thing? And she stopped for a second. She's like, I really would like 2 new chairs in our front room. and I was like, okay, 2 chairs. And if I do that, I can stay tonight. She's like, yep. I'm like, done deal, sold. So we closed the deal. So my Inception did not work on my wife. I had to go straight sell with her. But I think she sold me. In fact, if you think about it, she used Inception on me. She got her stuff really, really easily. Anyway, but this is the goal of this entire thing we're doing, is how do we create these things in people's minds where it becomes their idea, okay? Do you guys notice the sales process you guys all went through to come here? Do you notice that I never really sold you on it? You were selling me on why you should be part of this and why you should be part, and we just kind of turned the table, and you do that, it changes the whole entire selling experience, okay? The other reason why I think this is important, and this is really interesting, one of my buddies, John Allen, has told me this a little while ago. He said that they were doing all these studies and stuff. They said that in 1980, the average attention span of a person was 20 minutes long. Okay? And he said that you look back then, like the only distraction that people really had in 1980 is once a day the mailman would show up. Your phone might ring once or twice a day. There's 2 or 3 TV channels, so like you flip through and after 2 or 3 channels, if it's not there, you're done. And that was about all the distractions we had, right? So the average attention span was 20 minutes a day. And if you look at all of the sales stuff that is taught and people do and people share online, offline, everything, I believe that all the sales stuff people are using is all based off of people's attention span in 1980. Okay? That's why if you look at all the famous copywriters, they're showing how to write these like 8,000-page sales letters with 80-word headlines and all this stuff. And I think and I believe, and based on my testing and results, that stuff did work at a time. But today, people's attention is different and it does not work nearly as well. And so we have to understand that things are evolving and changing. So anyone have an idea of how long the average attention span is for a human right now today? You're going to be so depressed. He's 5 minutes here. Any other guy? 3 minutes? You're going to be so unimpressed with us as humans. Think about your kids, yourself. How often are you looking for text message and checking Facebook? And that's why we didn't pay for internet access in here, because I didn't want you guys on the internet the whole time. The average attention span right now, 9 seconds. Is that sad? So that's the environment we're selling in right now, you guys. We don't have 20 minutes to try to convince somebody to buy something. We've got 9 seconds. Okay, so we understand that. It changes how we sell stuff, right? Look at, and I'm going to talk about some of the different sales scripts throughout today, but I look at the people that are doing this really, really well, not in the how to make money market, but the people really well, like, think about when you're going through the grocery aisle and you're going to go buy your groceries, what are the things that are created to capture attention in your 9 seconds? Think about like the Inquirer magazine, Star. Think about those things like that, they're very fast, short, punchy things that grab you really, really fast. And we'll talk about some of those things throughout. But just the atmosphere is different, and we have to understand that. Okay? If we're doing sales the way people were doing 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, it's not nearly as effective as today because we've got to grab people's attention so much faster. And so because of that, a lot of things have changed. So what I'm going to be sharing with you this morning, the first thing is just more of the conceptual part about how the language patterns we have to use to sell. Okay, so this is more of the overall hierarchy strategy of how this whole thing works. And then the next sessions for today are going to be very, very tactical based. I'm going to give you the exact scripts we use at every single piece in the sales funnel. Okay, and so we've talked about this whole value ladder concept all throughout the weekend. But we have a couple sales scripts we use for this part of the value ladder. We've got a couple that we use for this part of the value ladder, and a couple we use for this part of the value ladder. Okay, and so you guys have all those scripts in your book, and that's what we're going to be going through. After this morning, we're going to go through the rest of those, and then you'll have all the pieces of the puzzle. Okay, so that's kind of game plan. All right, so Inception secrets. In your book, you've got kind of a diagram here that's going to illustrate out all of the core elements I'm going to be talking about during this first presentation. The very first thing, if you look, this is kind of, I would say the central pivotal part of this whole Inception secrets is this initial quote right here. And I was going to get the guy's name that wrote this. This is not I did not invent this. But what he wrote here was really, really powerful. I think he called it like the one-sentence persuasion secret or something. It's like a 12-page book that explains this whole concept. And I'll find that for you guys and let you know what it is. But in his little presentation, he said that if you want to get somebody's attention, if you want to sell somebody, these are the 5 things you have to do for that person. Okay? Number 1 is you have to encourage their dreams. Number 2, you have to justify their failures. Number 3, you have to allay their fears. Number 4, confirm their suspicions. And number 5 is throw rocks at their enemies. Okay? If you can do that to your client, they're going to love you. They're going to come to you. They're going to do anything you want. Okay, so whenever we're writing copy, we're creating webinars, we're doing any kind of sales stuff, those are the things we're trying to weave into our presentations. Okay, those are our key elements. All right. Okay, so let me step back a little bit. All right, so the first time that I kind of started thinking about this Inception concept, we were working on a big project last year. Some of you guys probably saw it. It was called Rippling, and we were working on it with a whole bunch of people. And my job was we were creating all the marketing materials. And we did a great job of it. We got 1.5 million members in like 90 days. And then the other guy's job, which was to launch the company, they didn't do a very good job of it. But the marketing part was freaking awesome. We did great, right? And we were having these conversations with me and a couple other people that were doing a lot of the marketing materials and stuff. And one of the guys, he kept making these marketing things that were so obvious, like so much like this direct selling stuff, right? Just kept selling and selling. I hated it. I hated everything he sent over. It drove me crazy. And so one day I emailed him. His name's Jonathan. And I wrote him, I said, and I copied this from the email because I just said it one night on my iPhone. I was typing it. And I was kind of upset at him. I sent it. And this is what I said. I said, Jonathan, what I found out in copy is that if you just tell someone something, then it's not as strong and doesn't get the emotion needed to cause action. I think that to really make a concept go viral and get people's buy-in, we have to lead them somewhere, but we can't give them the answer. They have to come up with it. We plant it in their minds with a story, and if they come up with the answer, then they've sold themselves, and they will cause the action. Does that make sense? So send that to him real quick. And then like 10 minutes later, he wrote back, he's like, heck yeah, man, it sounds like effing Inception. So if you guys know Jonathan, he swears every third or fourth word. Anyway, so that sounds like effing Inception. And that was the first time I was like, you're right, that's what it is. We can't be so obvious. We got to lead them to a path and then let them make it their idea. And if we do that, everything else changes, right? Okay, so we do that through a lot of different things. And kind of the core piece of this starts out with these three things. The first I call primary question. Number 2 is the epiphany. And number 3 is the magic bullet. All right, and this is a progress. So I have arrows on the little image there. Okay, so this is kind of the process, the core process of Inception we're going to be taking somebody through. All right, and so the first is the concept of a primary question. Anyone have any idea where I first heard this concept of primary question? Mike knows. Anyone else know? Tony Robbins. So if you go to Date with Destiny, Tony spends like an entire, I don't know, probably 8 hours on this concept he calls the primary question. And before I went to that event, I never even thought about this. We said that every single person in the entire world makes most of their decisions based off of one question that's running in their head all the time. Okay, and so we spent this huge, he did all these exercises to help you figure out what that primary question is inside of your head. Okay, and he says that there's typically just one question, and it's asked over and over and over and over again, and it drives and fuels everything you're doing. Okay, and so for all you guys, I highly recommend for you to sit down and try to think what your question is. But he went through and he talked about, for him, his primary question was how, like, I think it was his, like, how can I make this better? And so every situation is in, how can I make this better? How can I make this better? And that was his primary question that drove everything. Okay, they talked about other people's primary questions. Some people's primary question is, what's wrong with me? Okay, do you guys know anybody like that? Every situation, they're, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong? And no matter what happens, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? That primary question drives everything they're doing, every choice, every action, everything they're doing, they have that primary question. Okay? Other people's is, how can I add value? Other people's are, why am I so scared? I mean, everyone's got this primary question that's running through your head that's making all sorts of decisions for you. Okay? Now, when you think about it, well, not most, but all of your consumers, all your customers have these primary questions as well that are driving them. And you really got to figure out what that question is, because if I want to take somebody somewhere, I got to figure out, like, what's the question they keep asking in their head. Now, Tony, when he was teaching, he was talking very specifically to everyone internally, like, what's the primary question you have about yourself? And he wanted you to be able to become very aware of your primary question, because when you knew it, then you can start, it's just like this marketing stuff. When you become aware of it, you can manipulate it, right? When you guys become aware of the funnels and why we do stuff, when you become aware of the pre-frames and all this stuff, when you become aware of those things, now you can manipulate them and change them, right? So Tony was showing us, because as soon as you become aware of your primary question, now you can change it and do something that's going to serve you as opposed to holding you back, okay? And so for my purpose with this more is to understand that, again, people have a primary question, but I also think that inside of each of your markets, when somebody is making buying decisions, I think they have primary questions as well, okay? About your product, your service, whatever it might be. And so for our business, the very first time I really realized this was when we first launched our call center, and we were doing all this stuff. And prior to us launching a call center, I always have support people, so there's kind of a barrier between me and my customers. So I don't always hear all the feedback that's coming through from them, and which is unfortunate. I think that me and everybody should spend a little more time looking at your customer support, because this is how you can start finding out what your primary question is, like what things do people keep asking over and over again. And so one day, we launched a call center. We had, I don't know, maybe 10 sales guys or something. And one day I went in, I just wanted to hang out and just hear these guys sell. Like, I really enjoy kind of energy and the buzz of a sales room, right? So I go in there and I sit down and I'm just listening. And within probably an hour or so, I started hearing the same recurring thing over and over and over again. Okay, the majority of the people they were talking to, kind of in the business opportunity space, what they kept asking every single time was, well, if this works so good, why don't you just let me have it for free and I'll pay you guys from the profit I make? That was their question every single time. Well, this works so good, why don't you just give it to me for free? If you guarantee it's going to make me money, just give it to me for free, and then I'll pay you from whatever I make from it. Okay, and the sales guy had to always spin that over and over and over again, but that was like the primary question that the business opportunity market kept asking over and over and over again. And I had this like epiphany, like, wow, that's what they want. That's their core question. So how do I instead of doing what most people do and get like upset and just be like, because you're a moron, you can't do that. You know, like that's what most of our things is like, because you have to give me money. Like, but I was like, instead of me just getting angry, like how do I use that? How do I use that as a tool to get these people to do what I want them to do, right? And so a little while later, we were launching one of our offers. I'm going to read you guys the first couple lines to this because you'll see how I kind of use that as a tool. All right, this is for our .com Secrets X offer. So I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted to work from home, own your own business? Come on, you know you want that lifestyle, the one that everybody talks about, where you can work at home in your underwear or on a beach with your laptop. So why hasn't it happened for you yet? Come on, admit it. This isn't the first time you've been looking for a proven way to make money, is it? When is it your turn? My guess is this. You saw someone online promising you riches untold, but there was a catch. Doesn't seem like there's always a catch. You pay hundreds or thousands of dollars to get started, right? Before you make any money. Don't they know that's why you're there? Because you need money? Doesn't seem like if all those gurus' courses and software work so good and they really believe in them, why don't they just give you their money-making system and then after you've made your money, then they would get paid? Okay? I'm speaking to exactly what they're like, yeah, that's how I feel. Okay? I'm coming right where they're at and boom. And all of a sudden, that's exactly how I feel. And so then the copy from there goes on and basically spins like, look, I'm not like these other gurus. I care about you. I want you to be successful. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you come in for free. You have 30 days to come in for free. And for 30 days, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to give you everything I have. At the end of 30 days, you will be making money. And if you're not making money, don't pay me anything. Okay? Because that's the deal. But if you are making money, then just pay me part of the profits. Okay? I only charge $97 a month for this membership site. So in 30 days, if you're not making at least $97 a month, cancel. If you are, do nothing. We'll bill you $97 a month, and I'll keep training you, keep being your coach. Okay? So that was the message. You guys think that's pretty strong? Okay, we launched that. Within 45 days, we had added over 8,000 members to that membership site on our dollar trial, which then rebuilt in 30 days later at $97 a month. Okay, the right message got in their head, understood the primary question, and grabbed them. Okay, so for you guys, what's the primary question that most of these people are asking? Okay, if you're in the make money market, you probably know now. If you're in the weight loss market, what is it? Okay, if you're in the finance market, what is it? If you're a coach, whatever it is that you're doing, what's that question they're asking? Because if you can figure out what that question is, instead of hiding from like everybody else is doing, and you embrace that and somehow use that to take your offer where you want it to be, you'll be amazed how people will just follow you and start running with you. We heard like 8,000 members in their membership site in 45 days. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, after you understand this primary question, the next step is we've got to lead them somewhere. Okay, we've got to lead them to some kind of epiphany. All right, and this is I learned this concept initially from Dagan Smith, and Dagan's one of my best friends online. He's awesome, and he has this whole like story selling course and process he takes people through. And when I was going through it the very first time, he was talking about this kind of concept of telling story and how you capture somebody. And there's elements of what he taught me that are going to be in some of these other scripts you guys will see, because we use a lot of it. One thing he says is that the entire purpose of a story, is to grab somebody, tell them your backstory. Okay, this is the whole attractive character. So tell them your backstory, bring them through a process, and you have to explain to them how you had an epiphany. Okay? And the goal of you explaining how you had an epiphany is because you want them to have the exact same epiphany that you just had. Okay? If I just tell someone like, oh, one day I had an epiphany, I need to build a list. They're like, oh, okay, that was a cool epiphany. Okay, the reason why we use story and why story is so important, because I need to take them on that journey with me. Because I take them on that journey with me and I tell the story about how I figured out I needed to build a list, somewhere in this story, they're going to have the exact same epiphany I did, usually a few seconds before I actually tell them what it is. And if I do that, what just happened? It was their idea, not mine, right? So for example, in our product that we're teaching people how to build a list, I go through this, my story. I think I kind of shared a lot of the story with you guys on the first day. Basically, I tell a story about, hey, I was reading this article about this guy that was talking about how all these gurus make $100,000 sending emails, and I didn't believe it was true. But he told me this is how it works, and so I wanted to figure out how it works. So I went and I bought this email list of 1 million people, and I loaded it up. Remember that story I told you yesterday? I tell this whole story, and it bombed, and it didn't work, and all these gurus are scam artists. And I went to school, and I snuck out, and I logged into my PayPal account, and I made sales. So it actually worked, but I had to figure out the right way to do it, okay? But, and I kind of tell this whole story, and I lead them down this path, to all of a sudden they're like, man, I need a list. If I just had a list, everything would be good. Just like Russell, that's Russell's whole problem, but he made money. If I knew the right way to have a list, then I can make money. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, by the way, guys, I'm going to teach you guys the right way to build a list. Okay? I give them that epiphany. They have that epiphany. That's theirs. It was their idea. They figured this thing out. Okay? Inception was just caused. At that point, I'm like, hey, I got a product that's going to show you guys exactly what we just talked about. Okay? You guys see that? So that's the epiphany portion of this process. So we're leading with primary question. We're transitioning that question into the big epiphany I need to give them. And the epiphany is going to bring them to the core concept I'm teaching them. Now, this is one of the keys, you guys. It's really important to understand. I've mentioned it every single day since I think we've been here. In every sales message you have, there needs to be one thing, okay? The one core thing. And I promise you, if I was to critique all your copy, the biggest problem all you guys are going to have is you've got 2 or 3 or 4 things. Okay, Perry Belcher taught me this, and I believe it 100% to be true. He said that in every sales letter he'd ever written, if he's trying to get somebody to buy into one concept, it converts awesome. As soon as he makes them try to buy into 2 concepts, conversion drops. 3 concepts, it drops. 4 concepts, it keeps dropping. Okay? I look back at a lot of my old webinars from even a year ago, 2 years ago, I'd always be like, okay guys, I teach you about this and this. And as soon as I did the and in the middle, conversions dropped. Okay? My epiphany all needs to be tied into the one thing. Okay, the one thing. I look at the reason why the .com Secrets X sales video did so well, because the only epiphany I was trying to get these people to have is the fact that they needed to have a list. That was it. Okay? And before, I was going to teach them this and this and this and this. Okay? When we started doing the high ticket secrets webinar that we did last month, I struggled. I kept creating this webinar over and over and over again. I was like, had 3 or 4 core things I wanted to make sure everybody understood. It wasn't until I came back and said, no, the one thing. What's the one thing of everything that's the most important? I cut everything out, had just one message for the entire webinar. We had the one thing, it just crushed it. Okay? So you got to figure out that there's one thing in each of your sales messages. Do not try to sell them on 2 concepts. You not only have to get them to buy into one belief, and if you get them to buy into 2, it's going to drop your conversion. So figure out what, again, in every sales process, whatever it is you're doing, what's the one most important thing, and that epiphany is going to lead them back to that one core thing. Okay? Yep. It does not matter if your product is 2 things. Great question. Even if your product is 2 things, you only tell them one. A good example of that. So in .com Secrets Labs, one of our upsells is our automated webinar course, which is 2 3-day events we did like this, so 6 days worth of events. And the first time I tried to sell it, I was like, this is like the most amazing product in the world. So I'm like, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get, because there's so much stuff, and I spent like 20 minutes explaining all the stuff they're going to get. I'm like, man, people are going to be blown away by all they get. Conversion sucked. I could not ever get to work. I rewrote that sales letter 4 or 5 times, could never get to work. And then one night, this is actually the first time I had the epiphany of the one thing. I was sitting there, and I was like, of all the stuff that I'm sharing, like, what's the most exciting thing? And I looked back in the entire 6 days worth of the course, and I remember in that course, I spent about 15 minutes teaching people about a concept called the stack, which, by the way, you're going to learn probably after lunch. I taught this concept about the stack. And I was like, of everything in here, that's probably the one sexiest part. And so I took our sales video, I deleted the whole thing, I started over from scratch, and the entire video talks about the stack. I learned this thing from this guy named Armin, and I tell the results. This is what happened with it. And the first time I did this, and the second time I did this, and I just walked through this process of the stack and how much money it ended up making me, and how good it was, and how I've used it in every single thing I've ever done, and just that one thing changed my entire business. And literally, that's a 15-minute segment in a 6 days worth of a course. That was the only thing I talked about. And then when I did the pitch, I talked about that. I said, and also you're going to get a bunch of other stuff that's really, really awesome that's going to teach you a bunch of other things. But man, this stack alone is worth this, and you're going to get that plus everything else for this one price. And that was why I'm finally converted. And it's been converting like crazy ever since. So even if you have this huge thing, you got to pick the one sexy thing, and that's what you're speaking to. Okay? Okay, you guys hear that? So his question, and this is going to go against every single copywriter in the world. I promise you, I've had this argument late nights with all these great copywriters, and I think they're all wrong. Okay? Every copywriter teaches you need like 80 pages of bullet points on every single thing you do. The only bullet points I've ever written is for .com Secrets Labs, and that's just because I was trying to show off. Okay? It had nothing to do with me wanting to sell stuff. I don't think the old school of thought is let's write a sales letter and have tons and tons of bullet points because we have no idea which thing is going to be the most sexy to somebody. So let's give them every single thing, and then hopefully one of these bullet points will convert that person to a sell. Okay, it's old school thinking. That's thinking I've got 20 minutes attention span. I'm looking at 9 seconds, so I don't have the luxury of giving them everything. And I thought I was crazy. There's actually one dude who agrees with me, and the guy happens to run the only billion-dollar information company in the world. So I feel kind of good about it. So I had this idea, and I've been arguing with all these great copywriters about it. And then one day I got this book called Great Leads by Michael Masterson. Anyone ever read that book or seen it? You see it? It's an awesome book. So I'm reading the very first chapter of the book, and I'm on a flight flying back east somewhere, and I'm sitting there on the plane, and I read this, and I'm seriously like freaking out, because I'm like, I'm right, and everyone on the plane's asleep, and I got nobody to tell that I'm right to, and I'm freaking out, right? I'm like, oh, I can't tell my wife because she doesn't care, but I'm like, this is the coolest thing. So this is what he said in the book, okay? Again, this is Michael Masterson, not just me, so I'm leveraging his credibility, but I think he's right. He said, most copywriters conjure up a list of features and benefits and create ads that mention as many of them as possible. The thinking behind this approach goes something like this. I wonder which of these benefits will really push the buttons I want. I don't know. I guess what I'll do is throw them all in the promotion. That way, if one doesn't work, maybe another will. This is what we call toss salad approach to advertising copy. Throw everything on the counter into a big wooden bowl, marinate with some connecting sentences, and toss. It's standard recipe for a B-level copywriter, but it's not the way to win any blue ribbons in the most competitive kitchen of breakthrough advertising. Pretty awesome? I was right. Again, I think there's a time and a place for bullet points. Like I said, on our .com Serious Labs, we did it. But as a whole, we got 9 seconds, you guys. So if you have 9 seconds to pitch somebody, you got to pick the best possible thing in the world, and that's what you got to be focusing on. Yep. That's a good question. So the one sexy thing you bring out, does it vary with the temperature of the audience? Yeah, I would say it probably would. I've never looked at it that deep, but yeah, because I mean, in all honesty, the primary question is going to change with the temperature of the audience as well, right? That's why if you look at the image in the book here, right before primary question down here, the arrow, we come back here to the temperature stuff, right? We got most aware, product aware, solution aware, problem, and unknown, hot, warm, cold. So you're right. Because somebody somebody just wants to make money, okay, their primary question is way different than somebody who's got an existing business and wants to take the next level. Someone who's 300 pounds overweight and someone who's in great shape and they want to take their fitness to the next level have different primary questions. And so I think for a lot of you guys, you got to figure out who's the real person you want to sell to the most and start there. And again, that comes back to where's those fish at? Are they in warm traffic, cold, those type of things. Yep. So what she's asking is different people are motivated by different things. Okay. What you're kind of leading to and what you're saying is 100% true. So everyone in the world is motivated by one of two things. Either they like to move towards pleasure or away from pain. Okay? Have you guys ever studied NLP before? Neuro-linguistics programming. This is like one of the core things. People make all their decisions either moving towards pleasure or away from pain. Okay? It's important to understand that. Now, what I mean by that is towards pleasure is in the make money mark is I want to be rich, I want to have a plane, I want to do whatever, right? Away from pain is I hate my boss, I want to quit my job, I'm miserable, I want to get away from this pain. Okay? Now, every single one of you guys, every one of your customers, all make their decisions based on one of those two things, okay? And I'm curious real quick, think about yourself for a second. I want to know, all of you guys in this room, do you make the core amount of your decisions moving towards pleasure or away from pain? Okay? So who here makes their decisions moving towards pleasure? Okay, who makes moving away from pain? Okay, now this is going to be a big aha hopefully for some of you guys. Typically, entrepreneurs make their decisions moving towards pleasure, which is why 90% of the room in here makes their decisions moving towards pleasure. Okay, now the mistake that most of us make is we assume that our customers are the same way, and so we write our messaging moving towards pleasure. But the vast majority of the human population, I would say 90% of people on earth, make all their decisions moving away from pain. Is that aha for any of you guys? So we come in because we're entrepreneurs and we know this is what motivates us. Let's sell this way as much as we can. But we're not our customers. We're hyperactive entrepreneurs who can't sleep at night because we're so excited to work the next morning. Okay, we want that pleasure. We want that stuff. Most of the people just want to get out of pain. And so a lot of times just switching your messaging towards moving people away from pain is way better. Who had a question? Joey? Yeah. There's not a right or wrong answer. Everyone's wired one way or the other. So it's understanding your customers where they wired and not where you're wired. We always get stuck up to like, well, this is what I would have bought that. Doesn't matter what you would have buy. Okay. I was listening to Ben Settle podcast on the way over. He's got this podcast about marketing. All he ever talks about is picking up chicks. It's really funny. And he was reading like some personal ad that some girl wrote, and he's just like ripping on the girl, and it was really kind of funny. And he's like, she doesn't understand that all that men, he's like, this is what men actually want. He's like, the biggest thing that you have to understand is you can't sell what people aren't buying. Like, you have to sell what people are buying. That's a big key here, right? So people are buying, get me away from pain, and we're trying to sell, make, hell is a bunch of pleasure. They're not going to buy that. You got to sell the right thing. Okay? There's another question somewhere? Yeah, David? The other interesting thing about this is, like our goal as entrepreneurs is always to like under-promise and over-deliver. When you focus on one thing, they come in for that one thing, and all of a sudden you got the rest of your thing, and they're like, holy crap, like, you didn't even tell me about this other stuff. This is all just free stuff, right? And they get blown away. So it's twofold. One, increases friend conversion because you're focusing on one thing, boom. And number two, they love you twice as much because what they're getting in the back is just so much more. All right. Cool. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so next step then, after we focus on primary question, moving towards the epiphany, then the last thing is when you make your offer, again, as close to a magic bullet as possible. I was just thinking about, like, is this a magic bullet? Is this going to answer the primary question and solve the epiphany that they just had? What's the magic bullet? And if we can give them a magic bullet, it's awesome. Which is the reason why I like free trials. Is the reason why I like the invisible funnel. Which is the reason why I like free plus shipping, because this is a magic bullet. Like, I just solve all these problems. Boom. I'll give you this thing for free, right? I'm scratching that itch really, really easily at a low ticket. So for some examples of magic bullets we've had tons of success with, .com Secrets X is only pay after you make money. That's our magic bullet offer. Our double your reading, pay $100 after you've doubled your reading. Living on a coupon, don't pay until you've saved $20 your next shopping trip. Girlfriend in a week, don't pay until after you get a girlfriend, right? Like the magic bullet type offer. I love those for the front end of anything, okay? So when I'm looking at this stuff, you guys, put that up there. I'm looking at that, that's the core thing here, right? Primary question, moving to epiphany, moving magic bullet, which all this is kind of the one thing, okay? So that's kind of the overall hierarchy of how I'm doing all my sales messages, right? So from a high level, I'm trying to take everybody through this kind of a thing. Now with this, we can use this hierarchy in a ton of different situations, right? Video sales letters, automated webinars, phone calls, like every single sales thing I'm doing this kind of stuff. But this is the overarching hierarchy of kind of where we're going with it, right? Now, inside of that, there's a couple other really powerful things that I found that have had a huge impact. And these are all these things down here. Copy speed, trial closing, desire amplifier. So I'm going to kind of go through those right now. So the first one is copy speed. So I've hired a lot of copywriters in the past. I had copywriters work full time for me. I've written a lot of copy. And I always did things the exact same way that all the copywriter guys teach, right? I bought all the copywriting courses and all the things people were teaching that worked back in the 80s, back when people had 20-minute attention span. I believed it, I did it, and we had success with it. Not like screaming success. Well, we had good success, but it was kind of like that's what it was. And I remember one day, one of my friends came to me. He's like, hey, I've got this offer. It's doing really good. You should promote it, okay? And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to try it out. And I sent an email out to my list to promote this product. And it was weird because typically when we're promoting something as an affiliate, we're looking to find out kind of what our EPC is. EPC stands for earnings per click. So typically, like in the how to make money world, when I send an email out, most people want to make like $1, maybe $2 per click. If you make $2 per click, that's like a pretty good campaign. So if I send 3,000 clicks, I'm going to make $6,000 back, right? A really good offer might have $3 per click. So I send 3,000 clicks and make $9,000 back in, right? So that's kind of the metric we're always looking at. And so I sent like just a test email out to this guy's offer, and the very first email I sent out made $10 per click. Okay, so I think I sent 3,000 clicks, and I made $30,000 back in. I was like, holy crap. So I was like, why did that work so well? I got to figure out, and I ended up sending a bunch more emails because it was working so good. And what was interesting is, and this is kind of the power of having an offer that converts. If you have an offer that makes you $3 or $4 or $5 a click, you literally can become a millionaire in like 5 seconds. So this guy launched this offer, had no product launch, no anything, and within 8 months made $10 million selling this offer because it converted. Okay, so that's kind of why we do all this stuff we're talking about. You get something that converts, game over. People will come to you begging you to promote it all day long. Because he emailed me and said, hey, so-and-so got, whatever, $6 clicks on this, try it out. I sent it out, got $10 clicks. And next person just went like wildfire, right? And everyone's talking about it. So I went back to my why did it do like 3 times more than anything I've ever seen ever in the past? I started looking at it, and I looked at the sales letter, and it was structured so much differently than I'd ever seen anything else before. It still looked like a long form sales letter, but I looked at like the sentence structure, and there was never any line that had more than 1 line. There was never like a paragraph that had 2 lines or 3. And every single sentence ended with ... And I was like, this is weird. And I started looking at it, and I read this entire thing. It was just like, the style was different than anything I'd ever seen before. And so I emailed the guy his offer. I said, who wrote the sales letter for this? It's just different. Like, who is that? So he told me the guy's name. And so I called the guy up, and I just want to get to know him. And just like, tell me like this is just different. Like, something different's happening, and it's working. So I want to know what in the world's happening. And so I don't think he even knew. I don't think to this day he knows why, but it was working. So I started asking him, and I was like, let me see other stuff you did. So he showed me 4 or 5 other pages he had written, and all of them had the same style. I was like, where did you like make that up from? Or where did you learn that? He's like, I didn't learn it. That's just how I write. That's just how it works. And so I'm like, all right. So I started putting a couple of these other ones just to see as well. And same thing. It was like $5 EPCs, $6 EPCs, like just crazy numbers on every single one of the things he wrote. And I was like, there's something new here. There's something completely different. And so I started kind of reverse engineering his stuff and started seeing why it was working. And then from there, the next 2 or 3 sales letter I wrote, I started following the style, where it's very short sentences, a lot of ... dots after them, and it's completely changed how I write. This style, I can write a sales letter that would have taken me anywhere from 10 to 14 days, I can write in usually 3 or 4 hours now. It shrunk my time down, and the conversions go up every single time. So I'm going to show you guys kind of examples so you can understand what I'm talking about, how it looks. Because the part of it's look, and the part of it's kind of the speed of how it all goes together. Okay, so this is my sales letter for .com Secrets X. So you notice every single one of these sentences is like 5 or 6 words. They almost all seem like a headline. The speed of this is really, really fast. Let me read it to you. I got a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted to work from home, own your own business? Come on, you know you want that lifestyle, the one that everyone talks about, where you can work from home in your underwear or on the beach with a laptop. So why hasn't it happened for you yet? Come on, admit it. This isn't the first time you're looking for a proven way to make money, is it? See how fast that is to read? Okay? Again, we got 9 seconds, right? People are scanning stuff down. You got to block a paragraph. You go like this and you stop. You're like, oh. And we get an email now where someone sends you like a paragraph, and you're like, I'll just read it later. And you just ignore it, right? And you never come back to it ever. Okay? We got 9 seconds. So every single one of these things is almost like a headline, and it's grabbing you. And notice how unfinal it sounds. Like everything's like I'm throwing up these things in the air, and these ... dots keep me like coming back and keep me coming back. It's like, like it's never ending, and it starts like pulling me through this letter, right? That's why I call it the speed of the copy, because it's like in piano they would call it staccato. Is that the fast like da-da-da? That's what I feel like. I feel like there's like this fast speed of the thing, okay? And so when I write any of my letters now, all of them are like this, okay? There's never more. Once in a while I might drop to the second line. That's a very rarity. Very, very rare do I ever let it do that. Very short, very fast, and it sucks people in, and it works. And if you look at this copy, the whole thing, you know, I'll scroll out, you see it. Okay, that was the first time it dropped the second line, and I was like freaking like, gosh, should I make a whole other line for that, or should I keep going? But see how easy this is to read? If you saw that, you'd be like, oh, I can read it real quick. A lot of space, a lot of open stuff. So I'll walk you through the scripts later that show you the process, but just this, as far as the style, for speed and ease and everything like that, it's just awesome. You get addicted this way. You'll start writing everything. If you ever get an email from me or text, my wife's like, why do you always put ... at the end of every text? I'm like, I don't know. I just have to. Yeah, I agree 1,000,000%. Email, like, every communication with anybody now is this. Emails that go out, videos, sales letters, everything is in this fast, staccato, high pace, easy to write. And when you start writing this way, you'll see like how much easier it actually is. It's really weird. Like, I can go so much faster and tell a story. And again, when you guys see the scripts tomorrow, you'll see the things, and you're like 4 or 5 of these little lines for that the first thing, the next thing, and within a couple hours, your entire thing's done, and it's beautiful, and it's in your voice, and it's awesome. Do you have some? So the way I write now, so I script my whole thing out like this, and then I make, if I'm doing a video version, this is just the same video. So each PowerPoint slide is just one little sentence. Next one, next one, next one. Exact same thing. The worse your spelling, the worse your grammar, the better. Yeah, the second you if your English teacher reads it and is proud of you at all, you just failed. It needs to sound like I'm talking to you in a conversation. In fact, for a lot of guys, the way they do it is they get out like something and they record themselves saying it all and then transcribe it, because this has to read like we're talking. If it reads like you're reading, it ruins the whole thing. So I use a lot of weird words. I use gunnas and horrible grammar and dots, and I want it to visually look easy to read, and I want it to sound like I'm having a conversation with them. So the way I would talk to you if we're talking face to face is exactly the same way like this. If you read this, you're like, that sounds like Russell's talking. That's the way he talks all day long anyway. I want it to be in your voice. Okay? Yeah, again, your English teachers are going to hate you. Yes. And I promise you, at least once a week, when you start driving traffic, it's somebody who will email you like, hey, I saw your sales letter. I corrected all the errors for you. Here's the new version. Like, literally, we get those a couple times a month. I'm like, thanks. I'm not going to do anything of that. And they're like, I sent you this like 3 weeks ago. Why haven't you updated it yet? I don't care. But I promise you, there are people on your list or who come here who are so obsessed with English, and they're like, feel so bad for you. And they're like, let me fix this. And just don't worry about it. Just, again, it's speed, it's tempo, it's pace. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so the next thing. So Brent and I, we have a project called Overcome Pornography. It's a product that helps people overcome pornography addiction. And so we had written a couple sales letters and stuff. And one day we were getting on a flight. And I don't remember where we were flying. Do you remember? It was like a 4-hour flight, so back east somewhere. Yeah, so we're sitting in the plane forever. And we just couldn't get this offer to convert. And he's like, do you want to try to write a sales letter? I'm like, all right, fine. So I open my laptop. We sit down on the plane. And really quick, I tried to like slip in the mind of my target market. Okay, all the stuff I'm talking about, like how to get in the mind of my target market. What do they want? What are they feeling? What's the pain? All that kind of stuff. What's their primary question? Like, so I kind of went through this really quick. And then I put on my hat like as if I was that copywriter that had been studying his copy. And this was the first time I'd ever written this way. So I sat down, I just started going. And Brent sat next to me on my shoulder. And I just like I got in this zone. I started going. And like 2 or 3 hours later, I'd written this like huge entire sales letter. And we're like, holy crap, that turned out awesome. And this literally happened in flight. So I'm gonna read you guys part of this. And I want you to like to listen to a couple things like the emotion, the pain, the speed, the ease, all this kind of stuff. This is just a script. This is how it goes. So imagine we're advertising on pornography sites. So there's a porno site, and also you see this banner ad that says, feeling guilty? Click here. Or you're leaving a porno site, and a pop-up comes up, and this video starts. You hear my voice say, it happened again, didn't it? So that's how this whole message starts, okay? Okay. It happened again. Yeah. Who here has seen this video before? Half of you guys are our target market. I know it. Okay. It happened again, didn't it? To you or to someone you love. I know your story. Everyone's situation is different, but the results are usually the same. Let me know if it sounds familiar. It was probably about 11:30 at night. Your spouse just fell asleep, and you're tired, but something keeps nagging at you. You decide to get up just to check your email, or maybe look at eBay or Craigslist for something you really know you don't want or need. And a few minutes later, it happens again. You have no idea how you got there, but you're there. You knew it would happen, even though you won't admit it. You had a second of hesitation, but you know it's already too late. 1 hour turns into 2, and then 2 into 3. You know you're going to be tired tomorrow for work, but at this point, you really don't care. You know the shame and guilt you're going to feel, the look of pain in your eyes when you look at your loved ones, but it's already too late. For some of you, this is a story that happens often. And for some of you, this just happened. And that's why you're here, right? For others, it hasn't happened to you, but it happened to somebody you loved, a husband, a boyfriend, your child. From the outside, your situation looks hopeless. From the inside, you feel trapped. You rationalize you're not hurting anybody but yourself, but deep down, when you tuck your kids into bed and kiss your spouse goodnight, you know that it's a lie you've been telling yourself, hoping it'll lessen the pain. You're aching for change, either for yourself or for your loved one. And that pain you feel is real. Is that pretty good, you guys? I'm so proud of it. Does it work? What's that, the copy or the product? I can get you a copy and you can let me know. I don't know. Yeah, it does good. Yeah. Anyway, it goes on and on. But do you guys see how some of the elements I'm talking about, like do you feel the speed of that? Like you're sucked in and you're just like, and it keeps pulling you. And it's not like, oh, here's a big paragraph I got to read through. And then what's the next? You know, it's just, it's fast, it's speed. Like, anyway. So that's one of the big parts of this whole Inception thing and how we have to sell today is that speed, right? We went from 20 minutes to 9 seconds, and so we have to address that. We can't keep saying what all these marketers are saying and like, oh, well, good copy wins all. In some markets, it does. In NeuroSelf, so our supplement, we're targeting people that are like 60 to 80 years old, okay? That market, we have a long-form sales letter, bunch of paragraphs, and old people like that still have attention spans. They don't have cell phones, and so it works for them, okay? Other markets, the majority of the markets, doesn't work, right? If your market is texting and Facebooking 85,000 times a minute, you need to be working like this. You got to be speeding up everything you're doing, speeding up your copy. All right? Okay. All right, next one is trial closes. So this is a concept that was like earth-shaking to me when I first figured it out. And I was at a seminar, and this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I was at the seminar, and there's a whole bunch of really good speakers there. It was like a public speaking seminar, so they had all these really good speakers in the room. And I got up on stage and I started speaking, and all of a sudden in the back room I see this little guy walk down and sit down. I knew who it was. It was this guy named Ted Thomas. Anyone here ever seen Ted speak before? They call him the Pied Piper, because when he's done speaking, he literally, I've seen videos of him at like Robert Kiyosaki's event. He'll be walking like this, and he's got a line of people all behind him, all holding their credit cards in their hand, and they're walking like this, and have 300 or 400 people following to the back of the room and buying this thing. It's like it's the coolest thing in the world. And so he sits down, and I'm like, oh man, there's like the man that's like closes everybody here watching me pitch. So I get a little nervous, I'm doing my thing, and I sold. I did well. You know, I got some skills, so I did all right, and people ran back and they bought. And then I'd go back and do my thing, and I'm taking orders and doing the whole dog and pony show, right? And he's kind of hanging out inside during this thing. I keep seeing him. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be awkward. Whatever's gonna happen next is not gonna be good for me, right? So everyone leaves, and it's lunchtime, and he's like, hey Russell, loved your presentation. Love to take you to lunch. I'm like, all right, that'd be cool. So we go to lunch, and we start talking. He's just asking me all these little questions and just kind of like probing me about whatever. And I'm answering him. I'm kind of shaking my head, and I'm going through some stuff. And then he stops me. He said, look at your head. I'm like, what? Look at your head right now. I'm like, yeah. He's like, you notice how you're nodding? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's what you're doing wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, when I speak in an audience, like if you sit in the back of the room and you watch my presentation, you'll see a wave of heads going like this the entire 90 minutes. And he's like, when you do that, at the end, everybody will buy. I'm like, well, how do you do that? He's like, the same way I was doing it to you. He's like, what have I been saying for the last like 5 minutes to you as we've been talking here at lunch? I was like, you're just asking me little questions. He's like, notice every single question was a yes or no question. Like, yeah. He's like, you notice the answer to every single question was yes. I'm like, yeah. He's like, notice that you nodded your head every single time I said that. I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's the secret. He's like, when I was in the back of the room, he's like, nobody's heads are moving. Everyone's sitting there like this. He's like, you did well because you got some talent, you got some stuff. He's like, you need to get people saying yes from the very first second you get on stage, and they need to be saying yes the entire thing. He says, the way I do this is through a concept I call trial closes. Does that make sense? Okay, does that make sense as a trial close? Yes, okay? Yes. And he starts showing me, he's like, here's a bunch of trial closes I use. And he said the way that I first figured this out is I would do this and get people to say yes. And I figured out that this was something, right? In NLP, they always talk about like getting someone in a yes state. So he's like, the first second I get up, I ask a question, then I do something. I get something, I'm saying something. In my entire presentation, I'm saying yeses. He said, at first it was really hard for me. So what I did is I took a bunch of note cards and I write out these different trial closes. Like, does this make sense? And I'd put it on the floor when I'd speak. And another one like, are you guys getting this? And I put it down. And then, isn't that awesome? And then and all these different trial closes. And he would lay them all over the stage. And when he'd walk around, every time he stepped on one, he'd look down and he'd say, does that make sense? He'd walk over here. Are you guys getting this? And he would do that until it became part of his pattern, right? He did over and over and over again to the point where he had these all in his head, and then he would just drop these trial closes all the time throughout. I was like, that's pretty cool. And so he gave me this sheet that had like 5 or 6 pages of all these trial closes he had done. And so I took that home. And at the time, we just launched our automated webinar for .com Secrets Local. And I was like, I want to add these trial closes in. And so I re-listened to the entire like 2.5-hour webinar, and every single time I had a little timeline, I'd see, okay, at 3 minutes and 22 seconds, I should insert this trial close, and I wrote it down. And then at this time, I should write this trial close. And I went through the entire thing, and I listed out like 5 pages of trial closes. In fact, if you look at the .com Secrets Labs book, in the very, very back, I show you everything I did here. So I show you all my trial closes. This is like my thing. So at 1 minute and 5 seconds, I did this. And at 1:21, I had this trial close. At 2:07, I had this trial close. 3:05, so everything throughout, it's every trial close I added back into that webinar. So I just recorded it and had my brother, who's my video stuff, just splice those little trial closes in throughout the whole thing. And then and we put and a couple things about trial closes, like I got so blatant like the very beginning, because I'm in a webinar instead of like at home, so I'm like, I gotta get people nodding their heads like crazy. So one of my very first trial closes was almost like a joke. We put it in, and I was like, I know I can't see you guys at home right now, but I want every one of you guys to shake your head yes if you can hear me. Like literally, I need you to shake your head yes. So like I had people like, I just told them flat out like, say like just do that, and I was really blatant with it. A couple other really cool things is like that Ted taught me. So the biggest problem is a lot of times you'll share a testimonial, and then you get a little nervous and you move on to the next topic. He said, as soon as you share a testimonial, that is the best, most important time for you to drop a trial close, or 2 or 3 or 4. So I just showed a testimonial of Simon. I'm like, here's Simon, he just made $1 bajillion, isn't that awesome? I just did. So that was trial close. So I showed that, I'm like, isn't that awesome? Can you guys imagine yourselves doing that? Would that change your life right now if you were to have that same result in your life? Okay, what would your spouse think about you if you did that? Would that be awesome? Okay, I just dropped like 5 right there in a row. So anytime you do a testimonial, you do that. Anytime you share a really cool feature or benefit, like this is this cool thing that this does. You guys get that? You see how awesome that is? Is that one of the coolest things you've ever seen in your life? You see how this would change the future of your life forever. Okay, boom, drop, trial, close. Okay, and so I did that in this webinar, went back through, I think I have the numbers in here. We started testing the EPCs. So before we added trial closes, we were averaging, oh, please say the numbers in here. Anyway, I think we were averaging, I have the after number. Oh yeah, so when we first did it, we were averaging $9.45 for every person who registered for the webinar. After we added in these trial closes, driving the same traffic, we increased it to, oh, come on, can I not find it right now? It went up 74.6. I think it went from like $9 and whatever, 46 cents to like $16 per person. So 74% increase just by adding in these little trial closes. Is that cool? You guys getting this? Is that awesome? Okay. And so I started realizing that this was powerful, and I started using it first off in my personal life. I use this all the time. I think it drives my wife crazy, but it's the way I speak now, right? It's become part of my language pattern. In my sales videos, I use it all the time. In my webinars, every time I communicate with any audience, I'm using it because I want people to say yes. Natasha, be willing to share your story about this? Because it was like, was it 2 years ago, or when was it that we first talked about this?
I think it was maybe even like a year ago or a little over a year ago. And I heard Russell talking about this, and I was like nodding my head. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I've got to do this. But then I was like nervous. I was like, how am I going to ever remember these things? And then I remembered what he taught about the guy that had flashcards on the stage. And so I had a webinar. And so I decided that I was going to put it all on Post-it notes. And so I had something like 50 trial closes on Post-it notes all over my window, all over my desk. And Rich walks in. He's like, "What in the world is going on?" And I'm just like, they're like falling all over the place. I'm like, after the webinar, which it worked out really well. I don't have the numbers, but I made a lot of sales. And I remember like that night I walk out of the office and like I got like a trial close stuck to my shoe. And so now I always talk in trial closes, always. My new one is, are you getting this? Would this work for you? Could this work for you? Can you see yourself doing this? Like once you start practicing, it's really, really weird to do it at first and you feel like completely stupid. But then all of a sudden it just totally becomes a part of your speech pattern. Does that make sense? Y'all getting that? All right. Will this work for you? Awesome.
Will you tell me also what you said about one of your attendees at your event was like, I feel like you actually.
Oh yeah. So so I was actually in a group. I was in a group coaching call, and one of our premium buyers said, the one thing I love about Natasha is she always says, are you getting this? Does this make sense? And she's like, it just shows that she cares. She wants us to really get this. And it's awesome. And she's like bought everything that I've ever offered for sale. So yeah, no, it just makes people think that and you should care, but if they said, I'm not getting this, yeah. I don't know that I would necessarily have to change everything, but yeah, it does. It's a phenomenal technique, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you take advantage of the thing in the 108 split tests and start implementing those because they work. Love Absolutely.
It. Thank you so much. One of my favorite things about Natasha is like she hears something and then the next day she does it. Like I want all you guys to adapt that. Like I think that why she's so successful is because of that. She hears something, and instead of like, oh, will that work for me? Or she goes home, writes sticky notes, puts it up there, does the next call, and boom, closes it, right? And I think if you guys can all become like that, you're going to see the same kind of results. Awesome. I love it. Okay, so trial closes. Start using this. Just start practicing and start trying But I promise you, when you're communicating, just use these all the time. They work. They just work, okay? Nothing else I can say about it. Oh, here's my numbers. I went from $9.45 net profit to $16.50 net profit per registration, which was awesome. All right, cool. So there's trial closes. Any questions about that at all? Cool. Now the last thing is desire amplifiers. And there's a lot of desire amplifiers we can use throughout. And so I'm going to share just a couple different types because I think that they're important. So one of them that's kind of cool, I heard a guy, he's a good copywriter, I heard him speak on stage one time, and he shared this little nugget, and it was really, really big for me. He was talking about copywriting in the Bible or something, and one of the desire amplifiers he was really focusing on was the 7 deadly sins. Who here knows what the 7 deadly sins are? Who can, well, here they are, I'll say them. So you've got lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. Okay? Now, usually in our mind, we think the 7 deadly sins is this really bad, horrible thing, right? As salespeople, we need to realize that those are the things that get people to take action, all right? So when you think about that, when you're writing your copy, you got to think like, how can I make somebody lust after this? Because they're going to lust after, they're going to want it. Okay? How do we get them gluttony? Like, how do we use gluttony as a tool, as an amplifier to get somebody to buy my product? Okay? How do we use greed? Okay? How do we use sloth? So greed, obviously, make money, make money, make money. Sloth, do it without any extra work. Just sit on your butt at home in your underwear, doing nothing, right? Wrath, envy, pride. You're not going to use all these in every single thing you're doing, but think about like they're powerful things, right? So how can you weave 1 or 2 or 3 of these in your messages? Because they're amplifiers. They're things that all of us have inherently. They're problems we have, and if we can tap into those. I don't want to sound like an evil person, but we want to tap into those kind of things, right? Okay. The next thing, yeah, I'll share this. I think this is kind of cool. Hopefully, hopefully I'll do this justice. So this is a concept I learned from Tony Robbins, and it had a huge impact on me, and had a huge impact on how I sell people now. He has a concept that he teaches called the 6 human needs. Anyone ever heard about this before? You guys? And I'm sure a lot of you guys have thought about this from one aspect, but not from like a selling aspect. Okay, so one thing Tony says is every single person, we do things for different reasons, but there's only 6 reasons why we do anything. When you understand that, you realize that everybody does everything based on one of 6 things. It gives you a lot of ability. Again, so as soon as you become aware of this, you can manipulate it, right? So there are 4 needs of the body. There's 4 needs of the body, and then there's 2 spiritual needs. Okay. So I'm going to go through these. So the four needs of the body. The first one, let's see, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the first one here is certainty. T-Y. Okay. Every single one of us in this world, we need certainty. Okay, we need to know that when we wake up in the morning, things are going to be certain. Okay, we crave that, we desire it, it's a need we have to have in our lives. Okay, the next thing we all need is we need variety. Okay, we want something new, it's exciting, we need variety. Okay, something interesting is, do you notice that certainty and variety are opposites? Certainty is I want to know everything's going to be perfect. Variety, I want craziness, I want all sorts of fun and excitement. Okay, this is like the enigma of humans. Okay, these are opposites. We need them both. Okay, next thing that all humans need is we want to feel significant. Okay, I'm very special. I feel significant. I feel great. Okay, we all want significance. It's an important part. Okay, it's part of all of our identities. The other thing we all want is we want love and connection. Love and connection. Okay, I want to feel loved. I just want that love. Now, significance and love and connection are opposites. Significance is look how great I am. Love and connection is difference, love, right? But we both need these, but they're opposites. Okay? And then over here on the spiritual ones, we have growth and contribution. Wait, is it growth and contribution 1, or is it growth 1 and contributions 1? Growth and contribution. Okay, now, humans don't have to get these needs met. We can do without these and still function, but every single one of us will get these needs met. And we will give up our beliefs, our values, we'll give up everything to make sure those needs are met. It's strange. Now, the other cool thing is that anytime, any situation in your life where 3 of these 4 things are met, it causes an addiction. Okay? So for example, the first time I went on a date with my wife, I thought she was beautiful. Went out with her and we were talking, and everything I said, she smiled, and I got a lot of significance from it. She thought it was pretty cool, right? We were out on a fun date. We did a bunch of stuff. I got a lot of variety. It was exciting. And that night, she gave me a hug and a kiss, and I felt love and connection. Boom, instant addiction. Okay? That's why we all like falling in love. Okay? It meets at least 3 of our needs, and we fall in love. Now, what happens a year later? We get married. A year later, we have kids. We're at home all the time. And all of a sudden, like, things kind of are the same every day. Variety goes away. But we have certainty. Every morning we wake up, we know she's there, right? So we got this addiction. But what happens after a while when your wife stops thinking you're that cool? Right? Does that ever happen to any of the men in the room? And all of a sudden, like, you don't feel significant anymore. And what happens when you have kids, and then you have another kid, and another kid, and suddenly your wife loves these kids? She doesn't remember about you anymore. Well, I got certainty being met, but the other ones aren't being met very well. So what do? We have to have these needs met. Okay? So what happens? What happens to most men, or most women, or whoever? We start seeking these needs somewhere else, right? For some people, they go and they find a business. In a business, they show up every day. They got a business they're building. They get certainty. Every day it's this new thing. They get variety. Okay? Their customers love them. They get testimonials. And they get love and connection. Their team, their boss, people think they're awesome, and they get significance. And all of a sudden, their job fulfills all their needs. And what happens? They spend 10, 20 hours a day at work because that's where their needs are being met. Isn't that interesting? It causes an addiction. Who here is addicted to work? Because your needs are being met. Okay? It's interesting. And so all these things are happening. And one thing Tony said was interesting. He said that there's never a situation where anyone's ever gotten divorced where in that relationship all their needs are being met. Okay? If you want to, like, save your marriage, if you're struggling with marriage, look back and say, how am I making my wife feel certain? How am I lighting her up? How am I making her feel significant? How am I getting love and connection? If those needs are met for her, she will never leave you. Same thing for a guy. If your wife's fulfilling those needs for you, you will never leave. But the second they start disappearing, as humans, we have to get those needs met, and we'll find out a way to do it. Okay? Think about if you have kids. Think about your kids in school. Okay? If they're not getting these things from home, where are they going to turn? They're going to turn to sports. They're going to turn to drugs. They're going to turn to gangs. They're going to go find somewhere to get these needs met. Okay? And that's how it works. So this is the motivational, personal development part of it. Now that you're aware of it, how do we use this for making money? Okay? How can we create situations where these needs are being met with our customers? We can cause an addiction in our customers where they're feeling certainty, they're getting variety, they're feeling significance, they're getting love and connection. We can literally cause an addiction with them where they're going to want to keep buying from us, coming to our events, coming to our webinars. They're going to get all these needs met with us. And what else is cool is that moving on, like, to really take your life to the next levels, then you start seeking after spiritual needs. When these needs are all met, then you start looking for, how can I grow? How can I contribute, right? So same thing. How can you take your customers to the next level where now we're growth, we're contributing? Okay, we took one of our customers to Kenya with us for a week, and we built schools out there with them. We did a whole contest we wanted to help our community to grow and to contribute and be part of something bigger than they were, okay? So these 6 human needs, like I said, there's a lot of principles you guys can use personally in your own lives, in your kids' lives. Well, now with my kids, I'm going through this process right now because I know that right now my kids get all their needs met from us, right? It happens. But when they get older, it's going to shift. And if I don't focus on it, all sorts of crazy stuff can happen. But if I know that if their needs are met here, they're not going to go other places, you can engineer that, right? Every Sunday I wake up and say, this week, what can I do to make sure my kids get variety? Because if they're having it here with us and our family and with their friends that are good and we like, they're not going to go after drugs. They're not going to go into gangs. They're not going to be seeking for in other places. Okay? Anyway, so it's a cool tool you can use in all aspects of your life, but also with your customers. Like, how can we cause these addictions with our customers? Because if we do that, they keep coming back again and again and again and again. Is that exciting? I love this stuff. All right. What other ones? There's a bunch of other ones. I'll share one more one, just because I think it's kind of cool. Anyone here ever studied hypnosis before? With like you're getting sleepy. Okay, so hypnosis is, there's like the stage hypnosis side of it. which is fun and exciting. But from a sales standpoint, we use hypnosis all the time, okay? And excuse me, it's not so much to the point where I'm trying to hypnotize you, but I kind of am. Like if you watch any of my sales videos, and if you take a step back, or you watch my webinars, you'll notice I'm doing a lot of things to put you guys in trances in states that are more conducive to me, to you guys buying from me, okay? And so there's a lot of ways to do it. There's tons of really good hypnosis books, but just a couple things you can do. And I don't remember the book. I'll try to find, there's a book that's really good that goes through a lot of these. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I can let you guys know later. One thing I can do with hypnosis is I can attempt to cause amnesia. Okay? So what I mean by that is if a customer's coming in, they're having experience with you, right? And they've been buying a lot of things, they got burned by all the other bad, evil gurus in the past, I have language patterns I can use to help them forget those things so they focus on me. Okay? And they're subtle, and they don't sound like a big thing, and you may think that's not going to work, but it really does. Like, for example, in my sales video or my webinar, be like, look, I'm sure that all you guys have been in this internet marketing space for a long time. You've probably seen the scam artists. You've probably seen people trying to rip you off, trying to take your money. But for the next 90 minutes, I need you to forget about all that stuff and put it in the past. Okay? For the next 90 minutes, I need you to focus on what we're talking about today. I need you to have hope and faith, because what I'm going to share with you is going to work. Okay? That's a hypnotic statement where I'm taking this thing and I'm telling you, I'm causing amnesia, so you'll forget about all the bad things you are. Because one of the reasons why you're not going to buy from me is because you've been burned by somebody else in the past. So if I can use hypnosis to try to put that behind you so we can focus on moving forward, it works. Okay? Causing amnesia. The next thing is telling them what to remember. So a lot of times I do this in a webinar, like, look, you're going to watch this webinar right now, but what's interesting is tonight you're going to be laying in bed, and for an hour, 2 hours before you fall asleep, the thoughts in your mind are going to go over and over again. What if I did this? What if I did this? What if I did this? And as those thoughts go through your mind, you're going to know that you have to take action, that you have to be part of this. Okay? I'm telling these things, I'm placing subconscious thoughts in their minds, and that night, a lot of people are going to sit there and be like, it's going to go through their head. The human mind is really weird how it works. Whether you believe in hypnosis or not, I can place thoughts, I can place ideas in your head, and it'll do these really weird things. Okay, so tell them what to remember. Disassociation. Disassociation is where I try to take somebody into a different place. For example, you'll notice when we go through the scripts, a lot of times I try to future pace people. So I'll talk about something, and I'll be like, before we move on, I want you to really sit back and think about what life's going to be like in 30 days from now. When you've got this stuff, like, what's it look like to you? What's the future going to look like? Imagine what it's going to be like when you can fire your boss, when you have more free time, and when you've lost the first 5% body fat, or whatever that thing is like. And I push that to them, like future pacing. I'm disassociating from the situation they're in right now where they're miserable, and I'm showing them where they can become, where they can go. It's a really, really powerful thing. I think most of the scripts I have, usually at least once or twice from some kind of future pacing, we're breaking away from where they are and pushing up to where they want to become and where we're trying to take them. And if they can see that for just a second, very, very powerful tool. Another one that I like doing is time distortation. Anyone here been hypnotized on stage before? It's kind of a fun process, right? But usually you do it, and when you're in this hypnotic state, like, it's not like what people think. If you haven't ever done it before, it's not like you're like a zombie and you're moving around. It's more like you're just hanging out. And I remember for me, like, I feel like I was in a state where, like, if I didn't do what the hypnotist said, I'd feel so stupid. I'd be like, that was, I remember thinking, it's just, I have to do something, I feel like a moron. That was more like what I felt, and it was a state that he put me in, right? And I remember that entire experience, like, we were on stage for like 2 or 3 hours, and it felt like it went really, really fast because we're in this kind of hypnotic state. And so for me, a lot of times I'm trying to sell somebody, especially higher ticket stuff, we're taking them through a longer process, right? A webinar, like our .com Secrets local webinar, I think is 3 hours long right now. It's a long time to sit on a webinar listening to Russell pitch you on something, right? But I need somebody to do that. So a lot of times at the beginning, I'll use time distortion to say something like, now this webinar, I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff, but what's cool about it is as we sit through this webinar, things are going to go super, super fast. And even though it's going to be over an hour long or over an hour and a half, 2 hours long, it's going to feel like it was only 10 minutes long. It's only going to feel like you were here for less than an hour, but because of that, you're going to feel so much better. And every, blah, 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 something like that. Does that make sense, though? So I'm telling them, like, this may be long, but you're going to feel way shorter. You're going to feel like this is fast-paced, blah, blah, blah. And you do that, and it places that thing in their mind. Another one that's really cool, Howard Berg taught me this. He does it a lot. Because he knows that, like, when you start teaching people, they're going to get overwhelmed. And so he does at the very beginning, he puts people in hypnotic state where he says, no, as you start going through this training, initially you're going to be overwhelmed. That's a great thing. And as you become more and more overwhelmed, that's okay. That's a good feeling. And that overwhelmed feeling means that you're learning and you're progressing and blah, 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 whatever. And he said that when he started doing that, his refunds of his course dropped in half. Because suddenly he was telling people that like that feeling overwhelmed was a good thing, and kind of changed the state of it where typically people are like, I'm overwhelmed, give me my money back. All right, and then the last kind of thing that we use hypnosis-wise is if-all statements, and I'll talk about that more in the webinar section. Yeah, I'm not going to ruin that surprise. So if-alls we'll talk about in the webinar section. It's a really powerful hypnotic tool. Must-do, so you must do this, you must do this. I'm giving you a straight-out command. You must do this, you must do this. Works really, really well. And then can-dos. Like, can you imagine yourself doing this? It kind of goes into trial closes. But again, it's another hypnotic thing. So again, hypnosis is cool stuff to study, you guys. Even if you don't believe in like stage hypnosis, whatever, like as a tool, all these little weird little things, they add up, okay? And they all help you get to where you need your audience to go. So those are all a bunch of different desire amplifiers that we try to weave into all the copy, okay? So this whole first morning session, you guys, as you know, is not so much just here's like the script. This is trying to help you guys understand the overall process. Okay, we're taking from primary question to epiphany to magic bullet, and then here's some of the techniques we use. We talked about copy speed, we talked about trial closes, and we talked about some desire amplifiers. Now, you don't get overwhelmed. You don't have to do all these things every single time, but they're all tools in your toolbox now you can start figuring out how to use when you're scripting things out, when you're writing webinars, when you're doing stuff. And at first it'll be hard, but every time you do it, it'll become more and more second nature. Like Natasha said, the trial closes is second nature to her now. She does it all the time. Using hypnosis stuff, first I never used it, now I start using it more and more, and eventually it just becomes part of it just becomes a part of your language patterns. And as you do this more and more, it'll become more and more second nature. I'm a junkie. I like learning all this stuff. So I talked about this a little bit on day number 1, like concept of immersion. So this is what I like to do. Like I recommend this for all of you guys. Like I remember the first time I kind of started realizing the power of this, it was huge. Like I literally think that in about a 48-hour period of time, I can become an expert in any business. I can know as much in 48 hours as any expert. I literally think that if I want to become a doctor, I can spend 48 hours and do almost everything a doctor can do. Like it's really, like when you start learning how to learn fast, like we learn all this crap in school. It takes us, entire semester to cover a bunch of stuff. But like the reality is, if you learn through immersion, you can learn like 98% of what you need to do in a very, very short, finite period of time. So what I will do a lot of times is I'll pick a topic that I'm really passionate about. Like when I first wanted to learn NLP, I was like, hey, I want to learn NLP. I can go and read a book on it and do some stuff. In 6 months, and I know a couple things, or I can immerse myself in it. So I literally went online. I bought every single NLP book, every single audio, as much stuff as I could, and I got it all shipped to me. And I spent a week where I'm going to learn NLP. I'm going to learn as much as I can from it. And so in the car, I'm listening to NLP CDs and books. I'm reading through them, scanning. I'm trying to find as much stuff. And I just immerse myself in something as hard as I can for about a week. And in a week, you learn, like you literally can learn enough in a week on any topic that you can become an expert in it. Okay? Again, and so that's kind of what I do. So like when I got into NLP, that's what I did. When I started learning hypnosis stuff, about 5 or 6 sales hypnosis books, some audio courses and podcasts, just brained them as fast as I could. And I don't know everything on it. I don't finish reading every single book. My goal is not to read from cover to cover. It's to scan through and find the things that I can use that are applicable to me as fast as I can. And when you do that, you just assimilate information really, really fast. And what else is cool is like, when I was talking to Howard Berg, the world's fastest reader, he told me something that was really powerful. He said a lot of people read a book on a topic and they get like one author's perspective. And so the problem is that that's just one guy's perspective. He's like, I'd rather get 5 or 6 books and get everybody's perspective, and all of a sudden you get a whole picture. And obviously most of us can't read an entire book in 3 minutes like Howard can, so it's harder. But I like to get a bunch of different stuff and get a lot of perspectives on stuff because you get a better picture, and you start making these connections that you don't make when you dabble, right? Like the reason why I think college is a horrible experience is because I spent an hour here and then an hour here, and I learned like 8 topics in like a 3-hour period of time. And then 3 days later, I gotta do it again and again. I'm dabbling in all these things. I can't remember anything, and none of these connections are happening. But if I take one topic and just cram as hard as I can for a very finite period of time, you get so much stuff. That's why I like events like this. In 3 days, I cram so much stuff on you. A lot of it's gonna be over your head. You can get overwhelmed, all this stuff. But all of a sudden, all these connections start getting made, and you're like, oh, that's how this stuff all fits together. But if we did this same experience over 3 months, most of you guys would never be able to get all the connections. We're here, I think the majority of you guys will at least get the connections. Then you can go back and start filling in the pieces for what's important. I like doing stuff like that. Anyway, if I do an event, maybe I do an event once a week, and you guys all know once a week I'm doing an event, so you get certainty. This is going to be happening every single week. Each week I'm teaching a new topic. It's going to be exciting, the new thing. You're going to get some variety. That's why I keep coming, because Russell's got new things all the time that keep me fired up and awesome. And then on the call, everyone who's successful, I'm going to be recognizing them. Those who are implementing, I'm going to recognize them. They're going to feel significance. The MLM world's awesome at this. You ever noticed you go to one of their events, it's 3 days long, and all they do for 3 days is have every single person in the audience come up on stage and get their picture taken. They make you all feel significant, and then they get hugs with the leaders. You feel love and connection, and they create these cult addictions. Okay? All of our MLMers in the room, you know this is how it works, right? They are one of the best in the world at causing addictions, okay? Because that's what they're doing. So it's not so much in your sales that are like you're adding. This is more like your overall hierarchy experience with your customers. From everything you're doing, you're weaving these things in. You're trying to figure out how can I make these people feel certain, okay? How can I add them variety? How can I make them feel significant? And how can I give them love and connection? Okay? That's why events like this are good, because you can serve people at a different level, but you also can do a lot of these kind of things that you can't do necessarily, that are harder to do remote.